What's going on, guys? Good morning. We've got an excellent guest on this morning with Gamma. We will let him introduce himself here momentarily, but welcome to the Money Talk Show with Dane, where we talk about all sorts of interesting topics having to do with money, particularly crypto and real estate here. So we're pumped to have you guys. We're doing our absolute best to be the bridge between entrepreneurship, mainly real estate and crypto, so people can see how those two asset classes fit perfectly together. We're here to help educate and help you guys understand how this is the biggest opportunity, in our opinions, over the next 3 years, and it's not even close. You're in the right place at the right time. With that, Corey, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, man. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. I'm super stoked to be here this morning. As you guys know, I'm Corey Geary, Crypto Millionaires, just trying to spread the good word of crypto to many entrepreneurs as possible. We were truly blessed to have one of my mentors on today, Mr. GammaDevOps, who is going to be teaching me how to run and spin up a node validator on the Pulsechain mainnet. Well, first Pulsechain testnet, and then over to Pulsechain mainnet when that goes live, and maybe even on a couple other layer ones like AVAX or Ethereum. If Ethereum were to take a big enough drop, I would gather up enough Ethereum to run a validator on that network too. So it's just depending on how low we go with Ethereum, but it's just super exciting to learn this stuff. Obviously, the main focus will be Pulsechain. And GammaDevOps is an absolute beast when it comes to just anything with node validators, probably some coding stuff. And the guy's an absolute monster. He's been doing a node validator on the Ethereum testnet for over 2 years now. So he's very proficient in the clients and what it takes to run a node validator, system requirements, any stucks that you might find in spinning up a node. And so, Gamma, thank you so much for being here, man. I appreciate you. Why don't you go ahead and talk a little about yourself? I know we've had you on the show before, but go ahead and introduce yourself again for the audience.
Sure, I have to make sure I mute myself. Yeah, so GammaDevOps, that's the name I'm going under right now. I'm focused on DevOps, which is running servers and the backend infrastructure for Ethereum and Pulsechain is my primary focus. I've been doing it for like 13 years, like Linux sysadmin, self-taught. Didn't go to college for it. I went to college for political science history. Was in the military for a long time. Wanted to get into technology, and then I just started doing it on my part-time. I've been in crypto for 6 years. My first experience in crypto was looking at the Ethereum website and then running an Ethereum full node. This is like March, April 2017. So that running Bitcoin full nodes, understanding that, and then obviously just mostly just the Ethereum ecosystem for the last 6 years. Obviously, not obviously, I'm telling you, but I've been on Matic. I use PSC, AVAX, like really any EVM blockchain is what I'm specializing in. So like all the applications, all the knowledge I have is basically focused on EVM blockchains. Obviously, primarily Ethereum 2, which is obviously Prism, Lighthouse, Geth, Aragon is for Pulsechain. Those what I'm working with right now. On testnet, like you said, I've been on Go Early Ethereum testnet for when it was called Prodder testnet before the merge. I was on there for almost 2 years now. So I've been running my own desktop like computer, basically a gaming computer with 64 gigs of RAM, 32 core, 2 terabyte, basically the type of system that I've been telling people they need to use for a validator. I'm running 178 validators on this machine for almost 2 years. Works fine. You don't need to have a supercomputer. You're only going to run probably between 1 and 10 validators anyway, which are a lot less than 176. So my recommendation of 32 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of RAM, 2 terabyte, 8, 16, 32 core, that's in the wheelhouse. You don't need to make it too overly complicated if you want to be a validator for Pulsechain and Ethereum.
That's great. Let's unpack that a little bit. So the system requirements there, what would you say? You pointed me to, was that System 76, I think was a great
System76.com. It's a Linux company. They will give you a machine like an Android. It's like Alienware. If you're aware of Alienware, laptops, big in gaming, like back in the day. I don't know, a few years ago. I'm not a huge gamer, but they're like very good laptops. They have desktop computers. They have the little bitty, small little computers that are like looks like Raspberry Pi, but with a case in it. And then you get those in different configurations. And what I recommend is the desktop version, which is called the Telio. So it's a tower, right, with fans, and it's space, so you're not overheating your computer because you want the things to last for 2 or 3 years, right? And it's upgradable, which is important. And then you can, obviously you can, if you know what you're doing, and with a desktop computer, you can upgrade your CPU, you can upgrade your RAM, you can update your motherboard, which is the thing that everything connects to. Your CPU sits on top of, your RAM is connected into, your hard drives plug into through serial ports. Like that's all upgradable. But if you bought it from, say, this company, well, you could build it yourself, no problem at all, if you know how to do that. Or if you wanted to get a Linux system that's already pre-built for you with the configuration you need, it has Ubuntu Linux already installed. It already has the drivers needed for that operating system to work, so you don't have to do any like configurations. Then you can just use them. I've used them for years. They're fine. I don't get a referral, or I don't get any money from them because I'm not giving you a referral. Like, I'm just giving you a website. Just go into the website and click on it, and then look around and get a desktop. Minimum 32 gigs of RAM. You can get like an 8 core, maybe 16 core to be safe. So maybe 16 or 32 core. I have a machine that is like a 32 core machine with 64 gigs of RAM, 2 terabyte hard drive, SSD, NVMe, which is, the best you're going to get. So if you get something like that, then you're like future proofed, which you used that word before. Yeah, but that's true. You could run testnet, you could run mainnet on the same machine if you know how to do that, which is actually not that difficult to do. Or if you're just going to run, say, 10, 20 validators, you can do that on that machine.
Yeah.
Right.
Corey,
no problem.
Corey,
enough RAM, minimum specs. It lasts for 2 or 3 years, which is really like kind of the lifespan of a decent computer. So it's like not a big problem. This one's I have here, I've been using it for like 4 years. It's still going. Like no reason for me to change it. It'll probably be running for 5 or 6 years.
Very cool. Corey, talk about, I know that recently, so we purchased one so that we can run nodes and we can do validators and all that stuff. Talk about the kind of the price range of the stuff.
Wow.
You went to the website that Gamma talked about. Talk about the price range. I know it varies a lot, but I think that's useful.
It does vary a lot. And the one I got a lot, man. I got 128 gigs of RAM. I got 12 terabytes. I have I believe the CPU's minimum, I think it was 28 core, or might be more, might be the 32 like Gamma was talking. So, I got a pretty beefy computer just so that way I could run, if I want to run Pulsechain and, mainnet and testnet, and maybe I want to run AVAX, maybe I want to run Ethereum in the future. It allows me optionalities in the future is why I really wanted to, and I don't mind spending the extra money for something like that. That was around $5K just for the computer part. And then, of course, I got a monitor, I got a keyboard, I got the mouse, I got everything. I got the whole setup, right? And so I think what Gamma's talking about, though, what would you say, Gamma?
Minimum specs, we did it.
2K?
We did it before. It was like 1,800 plus tax. You're talking $2 grand.
$2K. So
maybe $2,000 for the minimum spec computer. That's a desktop. It's called a Thelio. And basically what I got. Right. I mean, I spent $2K on it. It's been working for 2 years. It'll work for another 2 years. It's fine. You don't need to spend $5,000 on a validator. It's preferable you don't run it in a virtual in a data center, because if you're in your house, you're decentralized.
Yep, that's what I want.
And then we can go into, like, once again, it's very important to understand slashing, which we can get into, and like what is a slashing event. And then if you're a home validator, what are your concerns? And I'll tell you, I'll give a sneak peek. It'll be a sneak peek. It's like, it's not that much of a concern. So don't worry about it.
It's just when you have your keys on 2 machines in your validating with 2 different machines, you can get slashed.
Yes, you'll get slashed at that point. If you're running a home computer and then you migrate to a cloud computer, or you have, you migrate from one computer in your desk and then you got a new computer that's in your living room, and you turn both of them on and they both have the same keys, you're gonna get slashed and you're gonna lose money, and you might even get kicked off the network.
Yep.
Like if you lose enough, you lose 16 Ethereum, and then in Pulsechain's case, it'll be 16 million Pulse, which could potentially be worth a lot of money. So you don't want to be slashed, but you don't want to do that. So if you're migrating computers, then what you do is you cut back up your seeds for the validator, like it's called a deposit CLI.
Yep.
It's staking deposit command line interface. It's a little program, and if you run the program, it'll generate your 24-word seed phrase. That's the seed phrase that all your validator keys are generated. Those are the keys that will sign the blocks. It'll also generate your withdrawal keys. So when you want to get your money out, it will it'll generate those. It'll also generate your deposit JSON file, which is just a file that you drag and drop into the launch pad that you connect your wallet to, so that it like pre-programs the transaction, so that when you move your 32 million Pulse to the staking contract, it's done correctly. The correct network is identified. Your goes to the correct contract, and it's the 32 million of Pulse chain is assigned to your validator, and this little file just pre-programs the transaction that as long as you did everything correctly, then the money gets moved into the staking contract, tied back to you, and then you're able to get your money back out. It's very important to do that on testnet first. You never, ever, ever want to do this on mainnet for the first time. Even if you think you know what you're doing. Like, you are a genius, and you've been doing systems, Linux sysadmin for 30 years. You will go to testnet, and you will do it at least one time on testnet and make sure it works fine. Because what's going to happen is you're super smart, and you don't know as much as you think you do. And then you make a mistake, and now you lost 32 million of Pulse on mainnet, and you wonder, why did that happen?
That would suck.
Because you didn't test it on testnet and you made a mistake, and then you did it on mainnet, and you didn't watch this video, me warning you that do not believe that you're super smart. You may be very, very smart and experienced, but do it on testnet first just to make sure.
Absolutely.
I don't want to hear about I don't want to hear about you losing your 32 million test if you never. First question on mainnet is, did you do it on testnet?
Yep.
You probably should have done it on testnet, huh?
And the only time you need to worry about that, like you said before, is if you're migrating machines, right? It's not a concern that people need to be worried about, generally speaking.
For the slashing part, right? When you're migrating the machine, so you might be like on a local computer, and then you have another computer you're going to be like migrating your keys over to. Before you turn on that other machine, you need to turn off this machine. But like, the way I set things up is I set them up so they turn on automatically when you boot them up. In my case, those keys need to be deleted. I need to like reformat that computer. I make sure I have my 24-word seeds. I have a USB device that has the validator keys, because those validator keys, they don't withdraw money. They're just keys that you sign. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the USB stick with the validator keys, not your 24-word seed phrase. That's only going to be on a metal plate like you do at a hard drive, right? You're going to get the 24 seed. You're not going to ever type them into a computer unless you have to recover your validators, right? There's a point in time where you need to plug them into the computer. But in this case, you're going to get the 24-word seed. You're going to write them on a piece of paper.
Or you just take
part of the process, you do have to type them into the computer to verify that you know the seeds, because does that check to make sure you didn't write 23 down, and you didn't write 24, you didn't write Joe instead of Smith, but those aren't two words that are in the 2048 words. But I'm just saying, they make sure that you wrote down the correct words down. But you're going to be doing this hopefully on a computer that isn't going to porn sites and doing all this crazy stuff. It's going to be like a new computer that isn't connected to the internet at this time. I actually have a whole video on this, right? It could be the same computer that you're going to be doing validating on, especially if it's a local computer. But what you did was you got it. It's brand new, never used for anything. Like, it's never been it's the first time it's ever been connected to the internet. It's
Yep.
straight from the manufacturer. You downloaded the command line interface tool. You unplug from the internet, and then now you run through the steps of like generating your validator keys, and it gives you your 24-word seed phrase. So it is as close to like certain that you can that there's no malware on this computer that's going to steal your 24-word seed phrase. Because you can't use hardware wallets for this situation.
So
right?
I don't see myself ever wanting to migrate to another computer, but like
Well,
I do see myself. What if like
have
in
a
the
house fire.
future? Oh,
Right?
okay, yeah.
I mean,
What-
like you're going to need to. A computer hardware doesn't last forever, so it could be 3 years or 3 years from now. Maybe your motherboard blows up, and then you're like,
Now
oh
I
crap!
see,
Now I have to
yes.
get a new computer. You need to be able to do it. But what I'm saying is, you generate the stuff on a computer that, like, if you like with you, right? You got a new computer from them.
Yep.
It's brand new from the manufacturer. Never was used for anything else. The likelihood that there's any malware on that is like very, 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 very slim. It's like non-existent, basically.
Yeah, will only be used for this too. For this.
Yeah, I
type
mean,
of-
yeah.
this
And then
type of
before
work.
you do anything else, you get this staking deposit CLI program, right? And you make sure you get it from the source, right? You verify from GitHub, but you install it, which is super easy. It's like a Python program. And then you generate your 24-word seed phrase. It's on your screen. And then from your screen, you write it on a piece of paper. It never,
Yeah.
and then now it's in now it's in a piece of paper. And then what it'll have you do, it'll have you verify the 24-word seed phrase to make sure that you know it, and you can get your seeds back, right? You can get your validator keys back, because that's very important. And then that hopefully for years to come, you will never ever put the 24-word seed phrase back into another computer for 2 or 3 years or whatever. Because
What about downtime? So, for example, say I'm validating Pulsechain, and I want to move to Puerto Rico, and I need like 2 weeks of downtime because I'm moving to Puerto Rico.
So there's a little bit. I did a test because I've been running on Go Early, and then I was running. I did these videos right on Go Early, and I have my own validator key. So I already have like 5,000 Go Early Ethereum staked.
Yeah.
So as part of that process, I turned off my computer here, and then I actually went through the migration process on testnet to move my validator keys to my server in DigitalOcean. And during that whole process, it was offline for over a week and a half.
Okay.
Right, because it was syncing. I'm like working. I'm just playing with Aragon, deleting the database. And then I'm just playing with Aragon and like understanding, because I never used Aragon before.
Creating different
I'm trying to
videos.
understand like the syncing process of like the Aragon client. And during that time, my validators are completely offline.
And how much ETH or Go Early ETH did you lose in that time frame?
If it was mainnet Ethereum dollar value, it came out to like 20 cents a day or something per validator.
For mainnet Ethereum.
I mean, like, so if you want to pretend like Go Early Ethereum, the amount of like units of Go Early Ethereum, and you translate to mainnet Ethereum, it came out to like 20 cents per day for Ethereum or something. It's very small.
Insignificant. Okay.
So here's the reason why it's insignificant. It's because the network was functioning perfectly fine. The network doesn't need you to be online to be able to process blocks. Now you're not getting paid
of the network.
You're not getting paid to produce blocks because your turn did come around and you weren't online to publish blocks. So you didn't get paid for those blocks, but you didn't produce them. And you didn't get paid for any of the, it's called attesting. You didn't attest any of the blocks anybody else produced that they were correct. Because you're put into like a committee, and then you're assigned a specific block. So you're like, you got to verify, oh, this block is good. And then you're attesting that this block is good. And on mainnet Ethereum and Go Early Ethereum and Pulsechain, it's all the same. 67% of the validators that are assigned to that block need to attest that it's
be
good.
online.
If there's like 80% of the clients are online, or 90% or whatever, then you're over 67%. The threshold is 67%. So as long as 67% of the total amount of Go Early Ethereum validators, right? It's by staked amount, basically. The chain's fine. So there's no extra penalty at that in that time. So, but you do get leaked a little bit, right? There is a little bit of a punishment for you for not being online. So you're like, you're you're not getting paid for one, and then you're losing a little bit of money. Like call it like $1 a day, or something like that. I'm like, okay, great. Well, if you were validating, you made more than you made way more than $1 a day validating, probably. So like you're already net profit. You're like validating, and then you're offline for a week, and you're like, oh well, like I lost a little bit of like opportunity cost of being a validator, but it's okay because I'm still there. I just turned my computer online. An example, mainnet did the merge in September. There's a validator that hasn't been on since September. They could turn their computer on right now and they could just start validating. It's like no big deal. They've lost some Ethereum and maybe they've turned their computer on one day, or maybe they lost their keys or died or something. It's possible, right? I mean,
right.
people, it's a human condition. So like this person was a mainnet Ethereum, something happened to them, or maybe they're in prison, or maybe they died, or hopefully they find their keys and they turn the computer back on, because I don't want any ill will from anybody, but the point is they can just turn the computer back on, and it's been offline for 5 months. They just turn it back on and they'll start earning fees again, and they'll get back up to, and they'll be in net profit before you know it, and they'll be fine.
Yeah. So if somebody's setting up a validator, you have all these different clients. Why
would Corey, can we push? So if you wouldn't mind, and I apologize for interrupting you, but could we push towards the testnet updates and timeframes there, and then we could talk more about the nitty gritty of like node validation? Yes. Is that all right with you guys?
Sure, I can talk about whatever you want. Keep me on point. I go on tangents and I'll just ramble for a half hour about stuff.
No. You do a great job. We appreciate it. So I pulled up one of the more recent Richard Hart tweets where he's talking about, it sounds like they've slain the bugs that were giving them issues, and potentially we're really close to version 3 of Pulsechain testnet. I know there's a lot of people on Twitter saying that it could be today or tomorrow.
No, it's not gonna be today.
We wanted to get you on the show.
Aragon's very slow.
Right. So I know that you'd pulled up, you'd tagged me and Corey in Twitter on a post where it was showing how long each step took to be able to upload all the data.
That information is not useful. It wasn't
that useful.
I looked at it and I don't.
Okay.
When I started running the client myself, I was like, yeah, this is slow, but I don't know the time frames.
Sure.
So like, let's say,
give us your insights. I mean, what are you
I do have some metrics. I do have some insight that I can share. So like step seven now, because it was 4. I thought it was 4. Now it's step 7. We're on step 10. Step 7 takes like 65% of the time. So more than half of the time. And then that's step 7. So there's a bunch of steps before then. So if that's 65% of the time, was one step 7, and then you have 1 through 6, and we're on 10. So you were talking about 6, 7, 8, 9. There's that's like 7 steps right there that are already done, plus step 7 or 5, right? There's 5 steps, and then plus step 7 to get us to current. The point is, maybe we're like 80% done, right? And okay, just going off of like, there's a estimate online that says Aragon takes 3 weeks to sync a Ethereum mainnet. I don't know how true. I don't know what hardware they're using, but they said 3 weeks. So it'd say more than 3 weeks, maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wasn't that dependent on the hardware? I remember you commented.
No, I saw it. I've been looking up on like, what is an actual real estimate of somebody who's synced Aragon like from beginning
on
to
a
end.
beast machine. Yeah,
on a beast machine. Like the information is not there. So you're like, say on an average machine that's running like 32, 64 gigs of RAM, like something you and I would use, not like Richard Dev with $1 billion who's running 1 terabyte of RAM, which I've never seen before.
I saw that.
No machine ever needs the 1 terabyte of RAM. But they put 128 core, 1 terabyte of RAM under this thing. Aragon can't handle that. Like Aragon is not taking advantage of 1 terabyte of RAM because nobody uses that much RAM. But they're not going to be limited by the hardware.
Right.
So I like the enthusiasm. I really like the enthusiasm. And they're not, we're like, okay, we're going to throw, like I said, they're going to throw the kitchen sink at this thing. And it's going to get us done as fast as humanly possible. And for sure, it's going to get done as fast as possible because there's no way that Aragon is taking full advantage of 1 terabyte of RAM and 128 cores.
Yeah, there's no bottleneck there.
There's no bottleneck at all. Aragon is the bottleneck because it's using like one core right now. Whatever. If you look at it, it's everything else is 0, and there's like one core that's using like 30% of its available. It's not really multi-threaded. It's not really taking advantage of the full specs and everything. Maybe Pulsechain devs will fix that and make it like so it can use 1 terabyte of RAM and be done in like 30 minutes or something crazy. But probably never gonna be that fast.
Sure. If you had to give an estimate, Gamma,
yeah. So I would say realistically speaking, if say we're hypothetically like 20% in. All right, if we're 20% done, like till the end, and it takes like a month to sync up a full Aragon node, which is totally pulling this out of my ass because the thing I said,
this is just for fun.
The post I saw was said Ethereum Aragon takes 3 weeks to sync. Okay, so maybe it's 4 weeks to sync, and 4 weeks would be 25. 1 week would be 25%. So you're like, okay, well, maybe it takes another week for them to sync the remaining port of Aragon, from like now. Okay, and then they still have to do some testing. They still have to do. Richard says some tooling adjustment, which is all basically like the chain ID needs to be updated. The RPCs need to be updated to like what's going to be on testnet v3. They got to update the AMN bot. They got to update the Pulsex websites. They got to update all this software in anticipation of testnet v3 having a different chain ID, different RPC URLs, different it's like the little details, little configuration files. How long does it take? Like not very long. They got to triple check it, right? They've done these deployments many times. I'm sure it's very automated, although I don't have I'm not in their group chats and I'm not in their repo. It's all private, but they've scripted this stuff out. They update the configuration files. They boot up one computer that's testnet v3. They connect a couple other computers, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 other computers. They boot one up. They make a snapshot of it, makes it easier to boot the other ones. This Aragon sync happens. Maybe they have testnet v3 already running in private. They're just waiting for it to, for whatever reason, to go live. I mean, there's a lot of technical reasons why they would need to do a lot of pre-work in private so that it makes it easier for us. And one very important reason is if you had, say, 1,000 full nodes try and sync in an instant, just turned on, and there's only 3 peers, it's going to take a week and a half, 2 weeks for those to come online. Now, if they had 20 peers, if they had 20 full nodes that already had all the blocks, and you could peer with 20 full nodes, then you're like, okay, great. Maybe it only takes 3 or 4 days to sync up, a couple thousand full nodes. Because I'm going to run one, and I know there's a bunch of people who are going to run one. There could easily be 1,000 full nodes. As soon as they have that client, they install it. And then now there's 1,000 full nodes with no database that's searching for peers. And who's got the database? Who can they peer with? Pulsechain dev systems. So how many are they going to boot up and have ready to go for us? Probably more than 5.
It sounds like you're saying 2 more weeks.
Oh, I'm that's the meme, isn't it? I mean, that's what I'm saying. And I'm memeing just 2 more weeks, guys. Just 2 more weeks. I mean, I don't know, 2 weeks to a month. I mean, I completely pulled out my ass. I'm looking at what I'm seeing. I'm just saying it's possible. Hey, don't clip this out, anybody on the internet. It's possible that mainnet, or it's possible that testnet v3 goes live in March. Possible, not an estimate. I don't know shit. Do your own research. Sure. Spend 6 years in crypto like me and know something, and then come up with your own estimate. That's mine. Right. I hope that testnet v3 comes live in March. It's very possible that is the case.
Okay. And what would you, I know we're just pulling stuff out of our rear ends here. What would you estimate from your background and knowledge once we're on version 3 testnet? Let's assume everything goes well according to plan. How long do you think it makes sense to hang out there before we go to mainnet?
As long as there's no problems.
Yeah, let's assume there's no problems.
Say less than 3 months.
Okay.
It's possible. I like the word possible. It's very possible. Like 1 month to 3 months is possible within the realm of reality, unless there's a problem.
We should teach Richard that word, possible.
I'm just saying, I'm setting expectations over here because I don't want this to come back on me.
Sure.
They're like,
sure.
well, Gamma, you told me it was definitely going to be launching in March. I was like, I never said such a thing.
Sure. Okay. And if there's problems, of course, it could be pushed out. Who knows how long, right?
1 to 3 months is a realistic expectation of a test net that doesn't have any problems, like some minor bugs, because it's enough time. And here's my reasoning. You need more than 2 weeks to get everybody on board, because it's going to take a little bit of training to get validators set up for people, which is one of the things that I'm doing, training people how to be a validator, right? And I'm doing one-on-one consulting, which is a thing, right? I'll do a one-on-one call with you and I'll walk you through the process. You can watch my videos on my Substack, GammaDevOps.substack.com.
Watch them all.
No problem. Do a one-on-one. I'll walk you through the process. No problem at all. I don't even need your keys. I don't want them. I have enough money. I don't need your money. I'm good. Okay. I mean, you pay me for my time, and like we're good there, right? That's the transaction. And we I actually got some subscribe. I got some subscribers already. They just popped up. That's funny. But where was I going with that?
I think you were saying 2 more weeks for testnet and mid-May.
So we're going like, what's the expectation? So we have the testnet goes live. It's a month for each validators to learn what they're doing. Maybe it takes 2 weeks for the network to become stable, right? That means there may be 5, 10, 15 on testnet that we've seen screenshots. It's 256 validators on 3 machines, I think he said. So he's talking about 64 per machine, which I'm running 176. So you can totally do that. Like, no big deal. So it's 3 peers with 64 validators each, 256 validators. That's what's validating the network. Okay, that's fine. We can start with that. I would hope there's more peers to start with, but that's a fine start, because as soon as everybody else gets all the blocks, then now they're sharing those blocks to everybody else. Yeah. So maybe the first few validators that are community validators like me, full nodes first, maybe it takes us 2 or 3 days to get fully online. And now we're sharing our blocks to everybody else. Now it's faster and faster for everybody else to get on board, because the expectation is when you have hundreds and hundreds of peers, it can take 12 hours to 24 hours to get up and running, completely synced, ready to go with Geth. Aragon takes a lot longer. So you probably want to run Geth. And if you want to run Aragon, then you sync another client with Aragon, and then you wait 3 weeks or a month, and then you switch over. But initially, people are going to use Geth because it's faster to sync.
Yeah, that was one of my questions. Why would one use one client over another? Do any of them have an advantage over the other one besides the time it takes to sync?
Yeah, so Geth is faster, but according to Alex, he shared some tweets because he's testing both of these, and he's got this platform, right, that he's running. So he's done some pretty extensive testing, and he's said that Aragon is better for RPCs. There's a couple of reasons, right? So it's a turbo Geth, or it's like a fork of Geth, and they have a lot of optimizations that are built in. It has a full archive node by default, and the database is much smaller, so you can get the benefits of a full archive node for, like, say, an RPC endpoint for a couple gigs, a couple terabytes, instead of like 12 terabytes with the Geth.
See, I like that.
Yeah, the downside is, with Geth, you can get it synced up in a day. It's a full node. It runs fine with the regular RPC. You can run transactions through it and everything, but it's not an archive node, because an archive node with Geth takes like 3 months. I mean, it takes forever. So with Aragon, maybe you're talking a month. With Geth, a full archive node is like 3 months. And with Geth, you have to turn on the archive node function. Like, it's GC mode archive, transaction lookup 0, sync mode full. And like you turn those on, and then you start that at the beginning, and then it's weeks before you can even use the full node.
Yeah, because you're putting the whole blockchain
For anything.
on the computer.
For anything, because it's syncing, it's building the database from block 0 all the way to
Genesis.
current, and then it'll go back through a few times like Aragon does. But so if you're a validator on Pulsechain, you're gonna use Geth to get online fast. You could use Prism or Lighthouse. Either one of those is fine. I ran both of them. I prefer Prism because it's Golang, and I've been using it for 2 years. But you can use Lighthouse. They sync up just as fast.
And that was my other question. Should you use a Golang for both clients? Like,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter to use one and
I tested both of them. They both work perfectly fine. It's your choice. Half the network should be Lighthouse and half the network should be. So we can do straws, A, B, and everyone take a turn, and it can become 100% decentralized. And then we'll each, just have a number, right? Where everyone line up and get assigned their Lighthouse or Prism consensus client. No, it's totally up to you which one you use. I like Golang. I've been using Prism for a long time. I'm comfortable with the UI. I'm comfortable with the way it handles wallets. But I did Lighthouse, and Lighthouse works perfectly fine. You can use either of them. Lighthouse is Rust and not Golang. So with that, you have to install Rust, which in my tutorial, I show you what you need to do. You do one command, run it in Linux, and then it installs all the dependencies for you. There's a certain way you run Rust. You install Rust for it to work. There's like 2 or 3 different ways. And I found the one way, which I show in my video, which the easiest way for me to do it. Because I'm all about finding the easiest way. And I tried like 2 or 3 different ways. I do the hard work, so you don't have to.
Yeah. So talk about, it's obvious that there's a lot more to, like, these guys saying that we're going to be launching tomorrow. There's a lot of work and things that have to be spun up in order for the network to be able to be substantiated and to be able to run properly. And Richard has talked about how he doesn't want people gaming the system when he launches mainnet. And so he's going to give a time frame for which it will launch.
I think people overthink that way too much.
Yeah.
Are we bored? Are we? Because that's been a talking thing. I mean, I know it's a discussion point for 2 years now almost about gaming the system, but we have to launch. He can give a 48-hour estimate, and people are going to do what they're going to do.
So that's what I was going to ask. Do you think that 48 hours is enough to get the client spun up and have enough node validators to be able to run the system?
I would like for him to not give any warning and just say it's live.
So how would that
work?
Just
avoid all of that. Don't even give a warning.
How would that work to be able to have enough people online to validate nodes and all that type of stuff?
As soon as he tweets out that it's live, there's going to be 50,000 people that are going to crap themselves, and then they're going to run to their computers. There'll be plenty of people getting online super fast. They don't need 2 days of notice.
But you're talking about, because earlier you're talking about how it'll take some time to spin everything up as a node validator and whatnot.
But the software is not going to be updated in the GitHub until after he announces it. So nobody can do any pre-work. There's no pre-work being done. Now, what you can do, your pre-work can be running testnet.
Yeah.
And then what you do, you're already running testnet. Awesome. You delete the database. You change your flags. The flags you use, that was a testnet flag. And then you just make a couple, one little change. And then you reboot it up, and now you're on mainnet. You've already got your hardware. You've already got your software installed. You delete the database, because in my instruction videos, I put, it's a blockchain database, blockchain folder. That makes it easy for you to find.
To locate.
But all you need to do is delete that folder and recreate it, or delete the contents inside that folder. Change the flag from mainnet, from testnet to mainnet, and then restart up the clients. And then now you're syncing on mainnet. You can be syncing mainnet within 5 minutes of Richard saying that it's live. You have to update the client.
Or you can be
mainnet release, where there'll be a release for testnet, and then there'll be a code release for mainnet with mainnet flags, with mainnet chain IDs, and all that stuff. So you have to update that. Then you change your flags, you delete your database, and then you're back online. Now, to be a good citizen, obviously, you wouldn't want to shut down your testnet validator. You'd want to withdraw. You want to deactivate your testnet validator before you moved over, which would take a day. Because now what we don't want is testnet to crash as soon as mainnet comes out, because everybody turned off their testnet validators, and then all of a sudden testnet was running smooth, and then mainnet comes on, and then now testnet crashes. And well, I guess we get through that experience of recovering from a critical crash, so we can do that. Sure, that's fun
I
for
feel
me.
like being on Solana.
That's like, yeah, be like, yeah, but I mean, it wouldn't be. I mean, it'd be like normal. Everyone would be like, yeah, it died because everybody moved to mainnet, and everybody who actually knows anything would be like, yeah, I can totally see that. And then like 3 or 4 days later, the network's fine again, because it would take 3 or 4 days, but then all the validators that were like, you moved to mainnet and you didn't turn off your testnet validator, you have to get kicked off the network, and that might take a few days. And then now you're off the network, and now it's back to normal. And you're like, yeah, it would have been helpful if you didn't do that, but the network's still fine. It can recover from, 30 or 40% of the network, like just leaving at one time. The problem is it doesn't look good, and it takes like 3 or 4 days for it to recover. But it'd be like a thing that would happen.
I think it's safe to say when he does announce mainnet, or goes, if he were to go live with mainnet without announcing it, he would have enough validators of his own operating in the background, so that way when people are moving over and spinning up their nodes for Pulsechain, he's going to be okay because he's got enough in the background working already.
I mean,
would you say that, Gamma?
only 67% of the network needs to be functional. So here's the thing that I haven't said before, that'd be like, okay, this is one reason why you'd want to do like a pre-announcement, and he might do a pre-announcement like, hey, testnet's running really great. Hey, if you're on the same machine and you're going to be running mainnet on the machine, might be a good idea to deactivate your testnet validators like now.
I would love that.
In preparation for mainnet. Because it's going to take a few days for all the validators to go online, and then now that's the only queue that makes any sense to me. If it's a queue to like, oh, we're gonna keep people from playing the system, and we're gonna, like, how does doing an announcement keep bots from doing what bots are gonna do, or anybody doing? No, it doesn't stop any of that. Now, a pre-announcement could be like, hey, you're running testnet validators, you can please shut those down. And
I would crap my pants.
And then soon, hey, we might have a mainnet launch. I don't know. Well, wink, wink. Come on.
So if he did that, I mean, let's run with that idea. So if he did that and everyone floods in, there's the activity that we all anticipate to be on Pulsechain. Would there be enough? I'm not sure for the right terminology, but like bandwidth for people to be able to go and access the network and do what they're going to do?
No, I mean, I come up for testnet.
No, I'm saying when we go to mainnet. It was just Richard and his team spinning up nodes and validating.
No, I mean, they're going to have the RPCs is what you're talking about, and they can put some hefty. They put. I mean, this is what I do. This is what I started doing was running public RPC endpoints, and they can run 4 or 5 128 gig monster machines in the cloud behind a load balancer with DDoS protection, and they can handle as much load. Like, I could set up a network. It'd take me about a day and a half. And I could set up a network. It cost me probably 20 or 30 grand a month, but I could set up a network that could take everybody on Ethereum.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it would be pretty expensive. I don't know what the exact.
And that's what Alex is kind of doing too, right?
I mean, I would need to run. Maybe run 4 or 5 like maxed out machines behind a load balancer, that are configured the way I know how to configure them, and there's no problem. Everybody could be on at the exact same time. Okay. And you probably wouldn't even notice it. Now, what are they going to do? 2 or 3 probably pretty hefty machines behind a load balancer. And then maybe there's a little bit of a lag if there's like huge amount of demand, but it wouldn't be like going down or anything. And validators have nothing to do with that. Validators are block producers.
Okay.
Right.
And we've seen the girth of the machines that they're running, so no concerns there.
Okay, if you change your testnet validated RPC details to that, you're talking to MetaMask. You just add mainnet RPC and then change your RPC settings in mainnet in MetaMask.
Yeah,
like they're completely different networks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like you have testnet over here and then mainnet over here, and they're completely independent. So here's how much money can you make? Yeah, I don't know. It depends on the price of Pulse. I can't give you an estimate on how much your money you're going to make.
Is there, instead of giving it in dollar terms, is there like a percentage range that you anticipate on your Pulse?
On Ethereum, it's like 3 to 5%.
On AVAX, it's like 10.
Yeah, so it just depends on the price of well, this is like a testnet V3 question actually, because you're going to see what you're getting, and
That's
then you
what's
can
gonna be
kind of
exciting.
extrapolate.
Yeah.
Like we still have to guess on what the price of PLS is going to be, but if you're just going to talk about like in unit cost, it's Pulse, it's the unit is PLS, so you're going to have the tokens are going to be PLS, the rewards are going to be PLS, the burns are going to be PLS. And so you can get a better estimate on V3. That's an unknowable question at this point.
Sure. So who should, I think a great question. We've got, man, almost 60 people on this morning. So who should consider being a node validator, and who is that not for?
That's a good question.
You're watching this on the internet. You can be a validator. Are you on the internet? Do you know how to use a computer? You're watching me on a computer, so yes, you can be a validator.
Well,
Now,
it's a
does it
little
take
deeper than that, Gamma.
It takes
You got to
some- it take-
learn.
oh, no, I'm just saying. I'm like, I don't want people like Richard likes to discourage people and say it's super hard. I am here to tell you, it takes a little bit of work. It takes a little bit of instruction. It might even take you some coaching to do it, but you can still be a validator.
You got to learn Linux. You got to learn command
Little bit.
line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless you do the plug and play type option Alex is talking about. I know they have options on Ethereum that are like that. You can plug in these boxes and they'll just do it like they have like apps you can just click on and it spins it up for you. What would you say for somebody who's thinking about the plug and play option from Alex, or learning it from scratch the way we're going to do it?
Oh, I prefer doing it the hard way, which means you learn it from scratch. You build from source, and then you manually configure everything yourself, and then you're like a Linux admin, and it only took you like 2 years. No, it's not really that hard because I literally give you command line, and I say,
yeah, you do.
These instructions are not going to be exact. So the difference is, if you install packages, if you're not using Ubuntu, then the way that I install programs are going to be a package manager. Going to be a difference of package manager. So, like with CentOS, it's like YAM, YAM is a package manager. With Ubuntu, I like to use apt. And that's the one I use. So I usually use Ubuntu because I'm more comfortable with it. That's like fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
But I had to fix a Block Scout Explorer last week, and this dude had it installed on CentOS. So I had to go back to my brain like 10 years ago when I actually used CentOS and start Googling stuff. I'm like, how do I install this program, because I don't know how to do it on Ubuntu. But it was just a simple, the package manager was different. And then, and so it's like a little bit difference, right? It's basically the same. But I would request that if you want my help, do it on Ubuntu 22.04 or 22.10. It's fine because it's all Ubuntu, right? Or even Pop OS.
Pop OS
is still Ubuntu. It's still fine. It's a derivative of Ubuntu. Version. So if you get it from System 76 and you accidentally get the Pop OS, which is kind of the default, that's still Ubuntu. So it still works exactly the same. The UI is a little different for the desktop. I actually like Pop OS, but for servers, I use Ubuntu. But the point is, the path to your folders and stuff, depending on your system, is going to be slightly different than what I have, because I did my tutorial on a VPS data center. Like, so if you were to go to DigitalOcean and you were going to boot up your own Ubuntu 22.04 LTS, which is long-term, right, support Ubuntu server, you could follow my instructions exactly because they work exactly. But if you're on your home computer, which is recommended for mainnet and even for testnet, then maybe it's a little bit different.
I would recommend anybody who's thinking about doing this. There are tons and tons of videos on YouTube to learn Linux. Like, if you've never used Linux, get familiar with it because it's different than Mac. It's different from Windows. Get familiar with command line, moving around in Linux. And I've been watching just tons and tons of videos on it and learning it myself so I can not be a complete idiot when I'm under Gamma's guidance. When I learn as much as I possibly can. So when I got Gamma on the Zoom call, I could squeeze as much information I can out of them and understand.
Yeah, one of the biggest things is when you do something in Linux and Linux doesn't like it, it gives you the answer usually, or it gives you enough of the answer that you can copy and paste that into Google
and then go search
and then
it.
and then somebody has an answer for you.
Yeah, that's
usually what I do, because I run Linux every day, all day, on command line all day, and I'm always messing up in some small way, and then I just I take that output. And then if I don't know it, especially if I'm trying to install new software, like installing Block Scout was kind of painful for me because I never did it before. And I'm using Elixir, which I've never used before. It was like almost everything was like, I've never used this program before. And it's like a Rust thing, and then Elixir, and then all those random apps that I've never used before. And I used Google. And it took me a little bit longer than I like. But being the first time, it took me like 3 days to install this thing from scratch, but I used Google to solve my problems. And it's called research. And it's like, the output, and you're using like whatever Linux system. And then you go to like the top 5 websites, and then you read and you understand it. And then you try and like, oh, maybe this works. And then over time you're like, oh yeah, this is the answer. Then like copy paste, change the command line a little bit so it works on my system, like a flag or like a path or something.
Yeah, once you get it right, it goes through, and you see it goes through, and you got it right.
A path, and maybe people don't understand that the path is basically like if you're on a Windows, it's like C prompt and then like downloads, right? That's your path, right? On Linux, it'll be like user USR hyphen local, or it'll be like var, like front slash var, was like this front slash var log, like that's a path, like that tells the computer like where is your file inside of the file system, because Linux file systems are different than Mac and different from different than Windows, but you understand the path, and then you can like plug that into the command. And then once you know that, then it's like you just keep a copy of that in the note or whatever, and you're good. So one of the main problems is like mostly paths, generally speaking, because the program will give you the flag, and then it'll say put a path here, and you're like, what the hell is the path? Then you got to figure out what the path is, and you're like, okay, let me dig in here and find the file, and then I go, okay, well here's the path. If I copy it's CD into a folder, CD into a folder, CD into a folder. Oh, there's my file. Now it gives you the path, which is right there. And then you add the file. And then now's your path right there. Or there's other commands inside of Linux that gives you the path.
So to recap, if you're going to be, unless you're buying a plug and play box from Alex, you're going to be about $3,000 deep on a computer and monitor and keyboard. And then you've got to obtain the knowledge, of course, to run your node validator. And I believe when you were on the show before, there's not a lot of upkeep that you need to do once you're up and operational. Is that accurate?
It's not a huge amount. Linux will run for 3 or 4 months before it needs any kind of update. So the rule of thumb, basically, if you're doing Linux stuff, is you update your system software whenever you update the client. Like if there's a release and you got to reboot your computer or bring down, say, Geth, right? Geth has an update. Like the Pulsechain devs have like a new release to fix something or other, right? Because there's always going to be releases. Software is not complete. Like, it's never done. There's always going to be a little bit of changes. Yeah. Ethereum devs are going to do changes, and we have to merge those into Pulsechain. Whenever that happens, you update your system, operating system, right? Just system updates. Then you update the client updates, however method you do, which I go into several different methods. You can use Docker, which is actually probably the easier version for people. It'll be the most easy way for people to actually run the programs will be in Docker. So you don't have to build from source and make it super complicated for yourself. And then I can help with flags and paths and stuff like that if you need help. That's one of the reasons I'm doing the consulting service. But yeah, you update the OS, then you update the client, and you turn them back on, and then maybe you do like a reboot where you turn it off and then turn it back on. I always after an OS update, I always just do that, even if it doesn't ask me to do a reboot, I just automatically do a reboot because it clears out a lot of stuff that's been building up in the system in some temporary folders or whatever. And it allows the part of the shutdown process and reboot process gets rid of a bunch of stuff that's kind of like just sitting there. The system needs it, but you just updated everything, just reboot the computer, turn it back on. Everything works fine. There's no more software updates that you missed or whatever. Sweet. Turn back on the client, like either Lighthouse or Prism or Geth. However, you have that. Maybe you run a command in the terminal that runs it. Maybe that's your process. Or like what I like to do, I like to set up a system service so that whenever it turns on, the stuff's in the back and it automatically turns on.
That's what I want.
Okay.
Right. So in that case, what you would do is you update your system OS, files or whatever, right? The general system update. Then you update your Prism or Geth client, depending on however method you have for that. For me, it'd be like git pull and then build it, create new binaries, and then reboot the computer. And then as long as there's no errors, then it's back online.
Right.
Right. Or Docker usually, the way Docker usually does it is you stop the container and then you restart the container. And then when you restart the container, it pulls in the new update. If you have it configured correctly, the latest release updates itself and then turns on. That's pretty easy.
It's pretty easy. Yeah.
If you have it set up. And then you can also get it set up in Docker so that if it turns off, it'll automatically turn back on without you having to do anything.
Okay.
Similar to like a back-end process, but it's Docker. So it's part of a flag.
Andrew has a good question here. As PLS goes up in price, will nerdy techie dudes not in Hex or Pulsechain ecosystem now start running nodes on PLS? Or will they be priced out? Node operators will need 32 million PLS, right?
32 million. Yeah, 32 million is the number. I wouldn't expect it to ever change. When we launch, maybe that's a $3,000 or $4,000, depending on the price of PLS. So maybe between $3,000 and $5,000, maybe. I don't know.
I think
it could be 10.
Point. Yeah, it could the price could get away from you.
I mean, if you want to be a validator, you should do it at launch.
Yeah, Ethereum, man, is 32 ETH. You need to have around 50 grand, if you want to do an Ethereum validator. And I anticipate there'll be a time in Pulsechain where it'll probably be around 50K or maybe even more. Who knows?
I mean, just imagine when Ethereum's 15,000. How expensive is it going to be an Ethereum validator?
Right.
The next bull run, right? I mean, we're launching. This is the bear market. This is the bottom of the bear market. We can, other channels we can discuss whether or not it's happened already or it's happened in the future. Whatever. This isn't the place for that, but you know what I mean. We're as close to the bottom as you're going to get, and then 2025 maybe is the top of the bull market in there. How expensive is Pulse going to be? How expensive is it going to be a validator? Or
that's why I would say if you're thinking about doing this, do it now. Build in the bear. Remember, bear markets are for building. Bull markets are for selling or exiting your position, whatever it is. But build in the bear. And so, if you're thinking about being a validator, now is the time to learn this and then accumulate your pulse in the middle of the bear. Do a DCA strategy if you don't have any pulse after launch. Whatever you got to do to get that, but right now is the time. Yeah, like to Gamma's point.
Yeah, and here's the thing:
you got to 25 come. It could cost 100 grand, 150 grand to be a validator.
Well, and here's the thing: your capital cost, if you want to think of it as a business, your balance sheet.
It is a business.
It is a business. So your capital cost isn't the PLS because you get that PLS back. That's not a capital cost.
Right.
That's an asset. That's on your balance sheet that's appreciating. It's locked into a contract that gives you the right to be a validator, but it's not a cost. It's an asset on your balance sheet. The cost is your time, electricity, and the amount of hardware it takes. So maybe $2,000 to buy a computer, whatever electricity it costs to run it, and then the time it takes you to learn how to do it. That's your capital cost.
Right.
It's not the PLS. You get that back because the second Ethereum testnet activated like yesterday withdrawals. Sepolia testnet. The next one is Goerli, which is the one I run.
Next, yep.
Right. Because I want to use this machine right here for Pulsechain, but right now it's tied up with Goerli Ethereum testnet. So I have to actually wait until Goerli allows withdrawal, so I can withdraw my Goerli Ethereum because I have like 5,000, like 1,500 Goerli, and that's like gold. I'm telling you, if you're a developer and then you're like, oh my God, Gamma's got 5,000 Goerli. Oh my God, he's so rich. Like I feel rich because it's impossible to get Goerli Ethereum. So I want to get that back. As a developer-ish person, like I use Goerli for a lot of things, and so I want to get that back. And then I'm going to use this exact same machine. I'm going to reformat it, and I'm going to use it for testnet. I'm going to use it for mainnet. Obviously, for me, for testnet, I probably use a virtual private server. But for mainnet, I'm going to run the desktop computer out of my desk because I want to be decentralized, and I want to follow my own advice and run it in my own house because I already have the thing right here.
Right.
And instead of running Ethereum mainnet, I'm going to run Pulsechain mainnet. Oh, isn't that nice?
Right. I like it. I don't think we asked you on the previous show, but what are your once again, we understand there's no financial advice here. We're not financial advisors, all that type of stuff. What is kind of your expectations for price performance for Pulsechain and Pulsex?
Yeah, I mean, I have an expectation that people don't like my numbers, but okay, here's the only number I'll give you. I think PLS will be more than a cent for I don't have any doubt that Pulsechain is going to be more than a penny. Now you can guess how much more than a penny it will be, but I think a penny will be a resistance point
in the first cycle.
And then it'll be support and
the first
then
cycle for Pulsechain.
The first cycle for Pulsechain by 2025, it'll be more than 1 cent. I don't have any doubt about that. And then I don't care about how it dips to, and it goes down at this price point, and then it launches, and like, what's the price of Pulse when it first launches? Like, I don't care because I'm not selling any of my Pulse. I'm putting it to validators or I'm holding it. Maybe I'll buy some more, but I'm not selling any of it. That's kind of the reason why I'm being more open about coming out. I'm doing clients. I'm trying to generate more income, so I'm not relying on any of my crypto. I can just dollar cost average like I recommend people to do. But like more than a penny, how much more than a penny do we get? That's the question. And then when we launch, like I said, I don't care about the talk about, oh my God, we're in a 90% drop after we launch. Like, from what price point are we talking about? It doesn't have a price for 2 days. Then it has some price. And then, yeah, people sell at that whatever magical price that is down. Yep. Like that the bottom of like post launch could be 10x like what it launches at. I mean, right. or whatever price in your head you have that you think it's going to be, it could be 10 times more than that. And then everyone's complaining about how it dropped 90%. You're like, well, did it really drop 9%, or are you 10x up on your money? Or maybe you're down 90% for a few months, and then it slowly climbs back up. It could be a lot of things, but that has like no bearing on anything I'm doing. Sure. I mean, I want to buy more PLSX. I don't have enough of that because I got into the PLS sacrifice with a pretty decent amount of money. And then my Pulsex, I didn't have quite as much money to put in. So I'd like to get more of that, I think. I'm not selling any of it, but like I could buy more of it, sure.
Right. Is Pulsex a penny type of target?
I don't know what Pulsex is going to do. I have a reasonable expectation, maybe kind of in my mind for PLS. PLSX,
who knows?
I'm not selling any of it. I'll just hold it until 2025 and we can find out together what it's going to be.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, I have no idea.
Sure. No, that was great. Well, I mean, we've covered a ton of stuff. I'm trying to see. Oh, wait, here's a good question.
Yeah, what do we got here?
Get into the Richard Hart ecosystem. What's your backstory regarding crypto?
So
yeah, I think you nailed that pretty good, Gamma. But yeah, talk about how you ended up.
So I've been following Richard since over a year prior to Hex launching. I was listening to his videos when he was wearing the top hat. And then he was talking about CFD token, and then that morphed into Bitcoin Hex. And then, obviously he dropped the Bitcoin, and then we launched, and I was there day one, put 2 Ethereum into day one. And then I bought for the first 62 or 64 days or something like that. Of Hex.
Nice.
So I'm early OG, whatever.
Nice.
I let other people like brag about, oh my God, I'm such an OG Hex account. I was like, dude, I was in the chat, before you even showed up. So like, whatever. But he's like, these people are like YouTubers and they're OG and whatever. So it's cool. But
we're OG Pulse X.
It's right. I think people overplay the whole OG thing too much.
Agreed.
Right. There's a lot of people who don't know anything, but they're OG. So
are you Godwell, Gamma?
Yeah,
yes,
I was here when Godwell bought.
Here.
I was here when Godwell did the double in it was like March or April 2020. That was a good day.
That's a good day.
I wish I wasn't. I wish I was the Godwell, because I didn't know about Ethereum when it did this ICO. That's 2 years before I even knew crypto was a thing. But
Sure.
yeah. So I got in the Hex early on. I was an admin for a short time, and all the admin are in all the Richard chats. But now I've gone off to do my own thing, education and stuff.
Let's touch on this one before we head out. Gamma, touch on the 25% etch to burn that Richard seems to be implementing on top of the
that's a miss. He posted that, and then I had some really great discussions in the developer chat about that, because it's not actually true. Okay, so here's the real deal. So there's no actual 25% burn. What they're doing is we have a $1.2 million we have a 1.2 million Pulse like inflation, right? So it's 1 Ethereum to 1.2 million PLS, right?
Right.
Ethereum has an inflation rate that is obviously going to be offset by Pulse, because there's more PLS tokens. So the Ethereum mainnet has an inflation rate, and now they've adjusted the PLS inflation rate to be, that 1.2 million times more tokens, right? All those numbers have to be adjusted a little bit, right? Well, here's what they're doing. They just reduced the inflation by 25%. And when Richard did the tweet, he said it was a burn, but they never existed to begin with. There's no actual burn. They just deflated the amount of inflation by 25%. So we're getting 25% less inflation than we would have ordinarily otherwise if we were meeting the same amount of inflation as Ethereum has. So, right.
Yeah,
so that's
I
the
thought
difference.
it was a 25%
Pulsechain, we're getting 25% less inflation of, normalized inflation, because obviously PLS is, the token values are going to be a lot different, right? There's no actual burn. The burn is EIP 1559.
Yep.
Ethereum has that. Pulsechain has that.
Yep.
Same, right?
Yep.
But that additional burn is just 25% less new inflation. So the amount of new coins coming out is going to be 25% less than what we would have gotten. And I had a developer chat, so don't come back at me arguing with this fucking point, guys. I know more than you in this. I'm going to do a Richard Hard on you. Say I know more than this than you.
Would that mean 25% less rewards for the node validators?
What's that?
Would that mean 25% less rewards for the node validators?
No, it's just 25% less inflation. So that means it's overall good for the entire ecosystem. Yeah. And then, so technically it's 25% less, but it's less across the entire board. So it's the same. It's not one group gets more and one group gets less. It's like everybody just gets 25% less. There's less inflation in the entire system. The way it was said to me in chat, basically Brent, who's the Pulse dev, was chatting with us about that. Talking about it's easier for us to be net deflationary, and then since there's less inflation, right? So it basically just comes down to, it's like it takes a little bit less of transactions to be net deflationary, right? So it's that 25% is just like a little bit less inflation that we had to get over to be net deflationary, meaning the amount of burns we have is greater than the amount of inflation we have. They just lowered it a little bit. So it's a net positive. And technically we're meeting the 25%. They just did it in a different way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, so it's the net, the end goal is the same. Just the way they did it was slightly different. And he didn't phrase it, I guess, 100% correctly. And it had to be clarified by somebody by talking to us and like asking like, what the hell's going on with this? Can you explain in greater detail the actual mechanics of how this is working? And then he explained it. It totally makes sense.
That makes sense. Cool. We've got other questions we could go to, but we've got to wrap up the show pretty fast. Do you want to touch on teller nodes before we leave?
So here's awesome. Appreciate you reminding me about that. So Teller is an Oracle service for Pulsechain. Now it won't be called Teller. They're going to be forking the Teller code with permission from like management team or whatever of Teller, right? They're aware of like what's going on. Apparently Liquid Loans is like to be taking the lead in this whole Teller
Jesse's already said that
situation. So it's not a partnership. It's not a, but it's like they worked with the Teller team people in Teller to get blessing, to get, work with them or whatever. So we're going to fork the Teller code, change it so that obviously it works for Teller works for a lot of different EVM chains. And then we're going to rebrand it. It'll be Teller, the actual Teller software, but it'll be a different name. There'll be a native Teller token, like different name token. I don't know what the name's going to be or anything like that. But so it'll be native to Pulsechain. It'll be its own thing, but it'll be Teller, like the Oracle service, under a different name. And then what I'm doing is I'm helping understand Teller better, educate people on it. One of the benefits to being a Teller reporter, which is the same thing as kind of validator for Ethereum, obviously different client, everything. So it's called a Teller reporter, and then you can stake your Teller token, whatever it's called, and then you can earn fees by reporting, price feeds and stuff like that to different projects. Like Liquid Loans needs it, Power City needs it, like all the liquidity forks, right? They need it. They need Oracle by default. And then like whatever other applications on Pulsechain need an Oracle, this Teller fork will be the Oracle service that's live. I mean, as close to mainnet, it'll be probably live on testnet. Honestly, I don't know exact dates or anything like that. Well, like when you know that information, I'll know that information. I'll probably tell you anyway, because I'm keeping aware of what's happening with this, and I'm talking to Walrus and the Liquid Loans people, right? Christian, Dave, they're like a couple founders of Liquid Loans and Walrus.
This Oracle's how Pulsechain's going to get the majority of its price feeds, correct? Is that am I mistaken with this? Is that what you're doing with your machine as a
what you're doing is you're a reporter and you're getting a price feed in from, say, you might be getting it from PLSX, but you could be getting it from the other exchanges, but then you could also be getting it from centralized so like exchanges that maybe have these assets already trading on them. You're taking all these different price feeds and then you're aggregating them into like a single price feed that is done in such a way that smart contracts can use them. Trustless, centralized, kind of more trusted way to get price feed data so that there isn't as much like this exchange has huge change and then all these other exchanges have a different price. And then what price do we use? Obviously, they take care of all that.
And then we're rewarded in the Teller token or the
it'll
version
be
of Teller token on
the native version of Teller token that's on Pulsechain. You can buy that. You can use the stake. You get rewards in it.
Do we know how much we got to stake with our?
I don't know the exact number. I'm looking on the documentation. It's what it's telling me in documentation, which I don't know what this is the number where it's telling. It's like it could be variable, it could be change. But what I just read, because I'm reading on this just today, say you stake one time and maybe the staking is like 10 tokens, or it could be 20 tokens, it could be 100 tokens, but say it's like 10 tokens. So you stake for 10 tokens and then you can report a feed every 12 hours. But if you stake twice, basically you stake twice from the same machine, then you report every 6 hours.
Oh, gotcha.
And then you stake multiple times, and that increases the amount of reporting you can do on the price feed, right? So you could stake 12 times, and now we're reporting a price every hour.
And
because you're doing that, you're getting fees from people because they're going to be paying you for the information.
APY.
So like it's basically the same thing as like running 10 validators on your machine. You ran 10 validators, you get 10 times more blocks, you get 10 times more fees. With these teller nodes, you could say you could have 10 stakes. You could stake 10 times, and then so in 12-hour period, you're going to get 10 times more ability to publish a price, right? And you get paid for that. I'm looking at the requirements, and they don't look very onerous. I'm going to be doing education material just like Pulsechain. I don't have specs that you need or anything like that. But the main point is, if you're interested in being a validator, then you should look into being a teller reporter, and because you can actually earn fees that way too. You may be able to run on the same system. How we were talking about how you can run an Ethereum full node and then also a Pulsechain full node. Like it's possible if you have the right setup, which I need to get into the actual specifics of running one, but it's possible you could run one like on the same system. I'm not sure whether or not it's a good idea to run it locally or it's in the cloud, because for me, just from what I've seen, I think it's more of like you're in a database and you need, because you're running an API and people are connecting to you probably. So you're not like direct. It's more like an RPC service.
Right.
It's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to mess up the terminologies because I'm still getting into it a little bit. But I think it's something that if I was going to be a teller reporter, I'd probably want to do it in a data center, and treat it more like a web app. Like you're running a server that's connected to a website that people are going to visit. And the analogy is you have this teller system that programs like applications would go to get price feeds, similar to you going to a website. So the server would need to be in a data center, connected to the internet, set up so people could easily do that kind of a thing, not in your house, because hardly anybody runs a web server from their house. It's too hard, networking and everything, right? I think it's similar to Teller. So go here. I'll tell you before I leave. My Twitter account is GammaDevOps, just like on the screen, at GammaDevOps. My Substack is GammaDevOps.substack.com. It's where all my tutorial videos are. I have a YouTube video. I have a YouTube channel, right? YouTube.com and at GammaDevOps. I do live streams from there every once in a while whenever I have something to talk about. And then I also have a Telegram chat. It's GammaDevOps chat in Telegram, right? T.me, no @ sign. It's GammaDevOps chat. Or if you're in Telegram, go at GammaDevOps chat, and it'll take you there. And you can join my Telegram group. Specific technical questions only. Please look at my videos first.
No win,
I'll
Lambo.
direct you there. And then if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer, like technical questions. And the same thing on Twitter. Tag me on Twitter. You can ask me really anything. I'm in Twitter Spaces a lot. I've kind of partnered with Papa Boner, Hex Hangout, and some of the security people. So we're doing security roundtables and
those are
Twitter
fun
Spaces
chat.
on security. Talk about validators a lot of technical stuff. Like all that's happening. So,
and guys, if you're interested in really learning this, being a validator, I think it's a great skill set for any EVM chain. Gamma is going to be the guy to go to for this in our niche, right? In our Pulsechain ecosystem, Gamma is going to be the guy. So subscribe to a Substack, help him out. I'm a big advocate of paying for mentorship and coaching, and I've done it all through my real estate journey. Now I'm starting to deploy this in my crypto journey too, where I'm going to be hiring Gamma one-on-one to help me make sure I'm spinning up the validator the correct way, that I'm not screwing it up. He could be there for when I have questions, and then he's going to help me with the teller too. And so I think it's just very advantageous for you, if you want to learn this skill set, to go ahead and subscribe to Gamma's Substack, maybe even pay him some for one-on-one, and to really dive in deep, because this is going to be a skill set that will carry over to all EVM chains.
And then final point about that Substack is I have a founding member Substack. It's like $150 annual subscription, get instant access to all my videos.
Yeah, you give away 1
I also
hour.
get a free one-on-one
Yeah, that's crazy.
consulting with me, and you get access to all the videos. So just do that, no problem. He got a free hour coming up here, and then he's also paid for more hours. So basically, I can spend a lot of time with him.
I bought a nice little block of time. That way, I'm preloaded when
it won't be available forever. Gamma's going to get super busy.
He locked in my starting rate.
Yeah, that's why I sent him over some US. I said, here, bro. Here's
it's the same thing with my I'm taking clients. So if you're a team that needs RPC services, public or private, GraphQL or Teller nodes, contact me. I'm taking new clients, trying to fill up my day. A couple more slots available for that.
I love it.
So
and this is either this option, guys, or you can wait for someone like Alex to create their own like Avado type box. It's a plug and play. But for me, I think I want to learn the skill set. I want to learn how to run Linux. I want to learn how to do command line, because this is a skill set that you could do for the rest of your crypto journey across other EVM chains. And it's just good to learn new skill sets and try to lean on somebody to have a plug and play option. That is my opinion.
Salty Stalker, I saw his subscription yesterday, so that's pretty cool.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
Well,
very cool.
Cool.
Awesome, guys. We appreciate you being on Gamma. We appreciate everybody in the chat and the show. We will be back on tomorrow morning, and so we'll see you guys then.
Yeah, so let's have you back on Gamma when V3 is out.
Yeah,
no problem. Obviously, I'll be validating by then on V3. We can come in and kind of do an update and have you back on. And I think it'll be a lot of fun, man. Thank you so much, Gamma. I appreciate your time. I consider you a mentor now because you're going to be teaching me my next skill set in this ecosystem. So thank you. We appreciate you.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Always coming on to your channel.